Hi there. Welcome to DNA Insights. This is a weekly session that I'm doing just to introduce a few of the very important genes that we all have and genes that we can learn about our status and understand better how our body functions and how we can support it. MTHFR is a really well-known gene, and actually at least 40% of people in the United States have at least one variant of MTHFR. It is methylene tetrahydrofolate reductase, and it's a really important gene, although I will say it is not the most important gene, as so often it is represented. The function is that it produces an enzyme and is involved in processing folate. It's really necessary to assimilate our natural folate and convert the synthetic form that we find in a lot of our foods and our like processed foods and our supplements. Folic acid is something that has been used to fortify our foods for years. And unfortunately, again, for the 40% at least of people who get a lot of folic acid in our processed foods, it is overwhelming to the system. For people who don't have MTHFR variants, it can still be a deal breaker because when it comes to our folate receptors, which is another gene we would look at when we see MTHFR, we want to understand the full complement of genes in the pathway. And with the folate receptor, when we have too much folic acid, even when the folate receptor gene, FOLR, is fully functioning, it only has the capacity to convert a certain number of milligrams, we'll say, of folic acid. So we need to make sure that we're not getting an abundance of it in our processed foods and in our supplements. So folate is required for proper methylation, detoxification, brain function and memory, regulation of methionine and homocysteine, which is in the methylation cycle, and our neurotransmitter function. So when we think about the symptoms that we would experience or could experience when MTHFR is a factor in our health, we could be experiencing brain fog. When it comes to recovering from any kind of illness or injury, we could have slower recovery. Heart palpitations and dysregulation of the heart function, cardiovascular dysfunction, vision issues, poor memory, fertility issues, and impaired fetal development, migraines, depression, and other mood disorders. So when we're looking at folate and its necessity, we also have to appreciate that the symptoms are a moving target because a lot of things could be contributing. We could be getting too much of the folic acid. We could either have or not have a variant or multiple variants in MTHFR. And we also want to consider other genes. MTHFD1, MTHFS, FOLR, SHMT, and DHFR are all other genes that we need to know. So if those of you who have been tested for MTHFR have the opportunity, I would dive deeper into the other genes and their function. Are they efficient? Are they inefficient? And what is it that you can do to support them all? There are so many great opportunities to support ourselves naturally and be proactive. It is very much an opportunity that we need to take. When we look at MTHFR, if you have variants, again, we need to eliminate the sources of folic acid. And even for those who feel you might have some of those symptoms on the list, we want to make sure you're getting enough folate, whether it's through whole foods or through supplementation. And that would be methyl tetrahydrofolate. Now, I'll speak to that in a moment, but we want to make sure we're getting the right kind. we can reflect on the genes that I listed already as to which of the types are best. And when we look here at MTHFD, SHMT, we even get into some of the B12 genes here, MTR and MTRR, which I'm sure on another session I will be talking about. But we want to be able to understand what our function is and what we're able to support in each of these categories, because you can see MTHFR is down the line from MTHFD1 and SHMT, FOLR too. Okay, so get to know the status of your critical genes, like I talked about, making sure that when we're looking at a specific function that isn't regulated properly, or we feel that we're not consistently performing, even with detoxification and being able to appreciate sulfur metabolism, if we aren't metabolizing our sulfur vegetables like broccoli, cauliflower, cabbage, and Brussels sprouts, we want to make sure that we are supporting our sulfation pathway before we start supplementing with folate, because it does, any kind of methylation or methyl donors are going to produce as a byproduct sulfur. So we don't want to end up having too much sulfur if it's not going through the pathway properly, or we will very likely experience side effects, which can feel like anxiety. And you don't want to be in that situation, especially if you don't know what's going on, because it can feel like there is a real problem with you, and it isn't with you. It is just momentary. It is just that you have too much of the sulfur going through your system. We want to make sure you're supporting liver health, and you are giving yourself every opportunity to eat whole, clean foods, making sure you're eating a clean diet, and that you are getting a good variety of nutrients in your diet. And when you understand the big picture of your genes, determining what form of folate is best for you is when you should supplement. So supplementing just arbitrarily is not a good idea, because you could end up having some additional issues. And also the sequencing of your supplementation matters. So just looking briefly at the bigger picture of MTHFR, I want you to have a good concept of how folate then goes into into the methylation pathway, along with the B12 that is carried forward into methionine, SAMe, and then it turns into homocysteine and goes down into the sulfation pathway through the CBS gene. So we need to make sure, again, that we recognize how important folate is, and that it isn't its own entity. It is not the only thing that matters. MTHFR is one gene out of many that we need to understand about ourselves. So if you want to learn more, you can join my free Facebook group. It's called Root Cause Investigation. I'm Lisa Witherow, so you can look it up under Lisa Witherow and follow me. Either my personal page, my business page is the DNA Advantage, or you can certainly just join my group. And if you need more support, I do offer the Healthy Perspective membership, which is a good start if you're just wanting to learn more about how to be healthier. And DNA testing is something else I offer. And DNA Discovery is a deep dive if you're ready to learn about your DNA and you want a guided tour of your genetics so that you can better understand what a personalized plan would be for you. Thank you so much, and I hope you have a wonderful day.